Sandy, he is a structural engineer and he's finished with his inspection. He's just going to go over a couple of things with us real fast.
Hello, yeah, so we just finished a foundation evaluation here at this property in Allen, and we found out that this property needs some piers on this side here, on the front side of the house. This front side of the house seems like it's undergoing some settlement. As we can see, the elevations kind of confirm that this is sloping this way, and it's not all about the elevations. We got some structural distress. As we can see, separations here. You got the separation here between this this frame here as well as the brick here. Same thing on that side there. If you kind of go around the house here, we've got some other separations that kind of tells us the foundation is sinking in this direction, and the house is kind of moving this way a little bit. And as you can tell, there's a significant separation between this brick wall and this brick wall all the way to the top of the house there, all the way to the roof there. So that kind of suggests that this structure here is moving this way, which is due to the foundation sinking. Same thing, we've seen some issues over here on the left side of the house. We're going to go back this way here, the left side. As you can see right here, due to foundation settlement here, you can see how this piece has pulled apart from the brick there. As you can kind of follow this line right here all the way to the top, and you can see that separating off. And then you can see some cracking here, some brick cracking here, and then you got a little slab crack right there. So all these are signs that suggest that the foundation is kind of sinking in this direction there. So
what about the windows pulling? I've always heard that was
windows. I mean, you can see just a little bit of windows pulling there too. But you know, sometimes you don't really see all the structural defects. You know, wherever the stress is, that's going to show the most. In some cases you may see brick cracks, but you may not see anything at the windows. Some cases you may see the window separations but no brick cracks. So it's just depends on house to house.
Yeah, because there's no brick cracks over here towards the front, but is this the only one?
That's in this area. In this general area, that's the only one, because the foundation kind of goes like this, and this is the piece that's kind of, you know, separating like that. So this is like kind of like the center point where this is going down. So if you support this area right there, then all you're doing is kind of making the foundation come up this way. That way this whole piece acts as one piece.
Okay. And so you're suggesting piers over here?
Yeah, piers over here on this side, so that we can kind of lift that a little bit. That way this thing doesn't keep settling down much more.
Okay. What is it when the corner slab pieces crumble a little bit? I've noticed a lot in this neighborhood that they do that.
The corner.
Yeah.
The corners.
This one doesn't really have it.
That's really not a, like that corner right there. You know, that's really not a structural issue. It's more of a corner cracking that kind of happens because there's not a whole lot of strength in that area. Mm-hmm. You know, you still got to keep the corner piece intact there. You know, you can use epoxy and stuff like that to just patch it there.
So it's never really a sign that it has foundation.
That never really is a sign. The corner thing is never really a sign of a foundation issue.
Okay.
Because you can have a perfect house and you can still have a kind of like a crack in the corner there.
Okay.
But that's no big deal. But you still want to keep that piece in there because it's supporting the brick. But at the same time, that's not a symptom of a foundation issue.
Okay. And what about doors? Because like in here, all the doors seem to shut fine except for the opposite end of the house.
Yeah. So sometimes, you know, if you have foundation issues, again, one of the symptoms is doors sticking. You know, you can see out of square doors. Sometimes you got doors. If you see the gap on the top of the door, between the door and the door frame, you know, you can see some unevenness there. So that's also a sign of, foundation movement. That really doesn't really mean that there's a 100% issue there because of different things like how they set the doors and all that stuff. But at least that gives you a clue of what else to look for if there's an issue there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like the cracks that are inside, is it what cracks do you see that are okay and what show that it's a foundation? I mean, like this right here is more.
All these cracks, they indicate movement. They clearly show that the house is moving, right? Now, I mean, you can't really see a crack, and you can never, almost, I would say like 75% of the time, you can never see one crack and say there is a foundation issue. Mm-hmm. You gotta analyze it more to be able to tell if there's a foundation issue or not. I mean, you gotta kind of put all these dots together into all these pieces of the puzzle together to get the right answer.
Okay.
Now you got some ceiling cracks there, and then if you tie the ceiling cracks with the structural distress on the outside and the elevations and the separations of the windows here, then the puzzle is coming together.
Okay.
But
this I was always told is more a building just from the piece kind of not being together, but that if it were to go from a corner window and the crack were to go off to the side, that's
correct.
more a sound
foundation. That's more of a structural issue. Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's not, if the movement happens, I mean, I've seen straight lines. I've seen like straight lines up in the ceiling as well.
Right.
So there's not, there's no one straight answer for that. Every house is different. But like I said, you just have to keep that in mind and then look at everything else from a big picture standpoint to be able to tell if there's a foundation issue or not.
Okay, and you do the same thing that, I mean, obviously a lot more accurate, and that's all you do with the measurements, but so the foundation companies that come out and look and do their measurements, is it the same? You get like a center measurement and then you measure down?
So we use the zip level, and we basically put the zip level, on a slab foundation. We typically put it kind of like at the center of the house, and then we just go around and we take the measurements pretty much everywhere else. Also, the measurements are one thing. There's deflection tolerances and things like that according to the ASC foundation guidelines, American Society of Civil Engineers foundation guidelines. But again, those are that's applicable to, I would say, most homes. But then there are also some homes that are built with slopes, so you got to kind of take that into account.
Like this one?
Like this one, so you got to kind of take that into account. So a lot of times numbers are not everything. They kind of give you an idea of what's going on to the house. They give you a feel of it. But at the end of the day, like I said, you got to look at everything to make sure you're analyzing it correctly. By everything, I mean the elevations, the structural distress inside the house, outside the house, how the house is behaving, and maybe the history of the house too. In this case, we looked at the history of the house. So if you look at all that stuff, then you can do a pretty good job of evaluating a foundation.
Yeah. So what does it mean when different people get different measurements around the house?
At the end of the day, that depends on two things. One, where you put the machine. Maybe three things. One, where you put the machine. Number two, where you're actually measuring. And number three, when was his machine calibrated, his or her machine calibrated.
Okay, so
you got to check the calibration on the machine too.
Okay.
So
should people ask for that?
Sure, yeah, I mean, why not? Yeah, absolutely.
It's been how often should it be calibrated?
Every 2 to 3 years, the machine kind of beeps cord. But even for us, even without it beeping, we just automatically send it off every 2 years.
Okay.
That's a good. You got to have the cord charged and all that stuff. That's that's pretty important.
So rain or being dry, does any of that have anything to do? I mean, like if a foundation company came and checked measurements 1 week and then it rained for 7 days and then another company came.
Yeah, measurements will be different. I mean, it shouldn't be hugely different, but they will be different from season to season, month to month because of external weather dependencies and things like that. I mean, we're sitting on clay soil here, so clay, the PI, the plasticity index of the clay is very high, which means it's just it swells and shrinks with change in moisture, right? So when it swells and shrinks, the slab is basically floating on this clay, and it does the same thing. So obviously measurements are different.
Right.
That's why I reinforced earlier saying that measurements are not everything, right? So you just have to kind of get the feel of the house by looking at all this other stuff.
I mean, is there a set measurement that you're like, oh, that's way off, or oh, that's definitely a problem, or?
No, we go by the ASC, again, same thing, ASC tolerance for the deflection.
Okay.
So it is for slab foundations, it's every 20 feet. You're looking for anything in the range of 7/10 of an inch.
Okay.
So if it's in 20 feet distance, if it's off that much, then that doesn't mean that you automatically need to throw piers in there. That means that you just have to investigate more.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's the rule right there.
Okay. What about, because I had on another house, they were saying that they thought there was a plumbing leak because the middle was higher
Mm-hmm.
than all the around measurements, or
Yeah,
lower.
it's usually plumbing leaks, cause something called upheaval issue in that area. It's a localized upheaval. So they cause a heave because of a slow leak there. Over time, the soil swells up in that area and pushes the slab up. So you got to look for those issues as well, and you want to make sure that wherever you're thinking of a 0 point or a reference point, it's not that issue, because if you put it there, everything else becomes a much more negative number. Then you automatically feel like you have a foundation issue, which could not be the case there. So
Yeah.
you just have to make sure that you look at if there is any history regarding plumbing or anything like that, and if it's a localized heave, you want to make sure you catch that.
And how do you know if it's a localized?
Oh, you will see it. I mean, you'll be able to see, like if it's here in this area, you'll be able to see it. It'll be like this. It'll be kind of like a heave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and certain, if you're taking the elevations, that elevation will be higher than the rest of the house in that localized spot.
Okay,
So
but you'd only know that if that was the one spot you picked as your center point, though.
For a regular guy, but we do it day in and day out, so
Okay.
we'd be able to tell with our eyes.
Okay.
I mean, depending on the elevation, but pretty closely we can tell that if there's a heave there. But not all heaves mean that there's something there under there, right?
Yeah.
There could be no leak, but there could still be a heave, and I've seen that in multiple homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this house, he had said that the first guy, that the laundry room he thought was, and I don't know if that's where he took the center measurement or not. That's why I was asking, but he thought that there might be, because his measurements all the way around were off, but then the next guy didn't get that. So that's why I was wondering how they can be so different.
Yeah, it depends on, like I said, where you put the machine versus where you're measuring. And then, obviously the calibration is also a big thing, because if he's measuring with a machine that's not been calibrated properly, or if it's kind of has a break in his line or something like that, then the measurements could be off. Not that I'm not saying that that happens every day, but that could happen.
Well, I mean, because like here, so the center of the house would be, kind of in the living room, but I don't know if he did it from the living room here or from the laundry room, which is where he was thinking that it was. I don't know why you would pick there to start the measurement, but you didn't see any signs of that it was going up to down.
Oh yeah, the foundation is actually going down in this area right there.
Okay, but not like the other areas, like back and over.
Yeah, it's a little low here, but it's it's nothing crazy. It's like minus 0.4 and minus 0.5.
Okay.
So that's still within tolerance in this area right here.
Okay. So if it was a plumbing leak, we would see what, higher number or lower numbers?
Nothing like that.
But-
I mean, that's a symptom, and not every house could have that symptom, and you could still have a plumbing leak there. So again, there's no cookie cutter answer to that.
There's
right?
no way of really
There's
finding.
unless you do a pressure test and things like that.
Right, and they did. They ended up having a pressure test, and it was good.
Oh, okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
Good, yeah.
But I'm just wondering for other people, when someone says under, the slab leak, everybody panics,
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering why one would say maybe and the other would say no, just by numbers.
It's just an opinion. I mean, a lot of people have been doing this for a lot of years, and it's their experience.
Yeah.
And eventually, foundation evaluation is just an opinion. of that person who's doing it. So there's another engineer could come and tell the owner that his evaluation could have many more peers than mine or less than mine, right? So again, we're trying to stabilize the house, and every person's opinion is different.
Yeah. So you don't think, so once they put piers in that front part, nothing's going to happen, like the back's going to start moving? Or,
It shouldn't.
Okay.
Typically, no, not sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to move a little bit. Again, the movement could be, or will be due to that soil, which is a clay soil. And, maintenance plays a big part in foundation performance.
Yeah, maintenance. I mean, because everybody says something different about the soaker hoses and how often and.
How often kind of depends on what kind of soil you have.
Okay, so for like clay, is it that you put the soaker hoses 5 to 6 feet out?
No,
or 3 feet?
Like 18 inches, at least 18 inches away from the foundation.
Okay.
That's what we recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how often?
Like
if it hasn't rained at all.
Yeah, well, the timing depends on again your soil. You want to get enough water in there so that the water kind of percolates deep into the soil there. So that you have to you should know what your soil is. It's more of a trial and error basis. I mean, there's no straight answer to that. If someone's saying that you need to put it 1 hour, it could be different from your house to my house, right?
So it's just how long it takes for it to soak into the soil?
Exactly, yeah. You just have to keep it moist, not wet. You don't want to put too much moisture in there, but you want to keep it moist.
So like the area from the 18 inches of the hose to the slab, you should see that whole area is moist?
Yeah, you should typically see the whole area is moist, but if you want to test it, then just see the whole perimeter of the house and make sure that you got moisture there. Now you can tell if you have too much moisture there because water's gonna be flowing and things like that. You don't want that.
Right.
But as long as you have enough moisture, then the clay is not moving too much. It's not shrinking and swelling. The goal here is to keep the clay constant.
Okay.
You're gonna still shrink and swell a little bit, but if you're shrinking and swelling too much in volume, then that's when the slab starts to deflect too much.
Okay. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. I'm gonna sign off on the video.
No problem. Thank you.